it's really easy to get rich if you want to sacrifice your morals. I didn't do that shit, all right? I built this company for the sheer purpose of not having to sacrifice my morals. What do they say? Dirty hands, clean money. All right? That's what it is. And I love it. Because my alternative, in my mind, if I wanted to get rich, was to do some shady shit. You know what I mean? And I don't want to go down that route. Like, I don't want to live that life. So, after I got my mowers, after I got my pesticide applicator's license, basically everybody who I mowed that had a nice yard, I got their account for applications because they loved me. And then another year later, I got my backflow certification. And then I took over all their irrigation maintenance. And then I created what's called a full service program where I did your mowing, your applications, and your irrigation. And of course, from there, I found that people had other problems. People had weeds in their beds, and I couldn't get guys to be out there every week to pull weeds. So I need a program to keep the weeds managed, okay? So I found herbicides that could do it. There's insects that show up every year on certain plants. Like the very first treatment program I had was treating bagworms on emerald green arborvitae. Everybody has a bunch of them, and they all get bagworms if you don't treat for them preventatively. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And once they get the bagworms, it's a real pain in the butt to get them cleaned up and keep them healthy. So we started the program treating preventatively for bagworms. Then I realized that I needed to really expand that program. Bagworms was just the tip of the iceberg, and there's like hundreds of different insects that affect all kinds of bushes. And if I really want to control them, my program needs to really be going from the beginning of the spring to the end of the fall. And so I created a program, and that's what it does. And so now it wasn't just controlling the bagworms. I was controlling the tip miners. I'm controlling spider mites. You know, like any of the insect problems and arachnid problems that I'm running across, because technically mites aren't insects. But I got a program, so I'm coming back every year, 4 times a year, right? And then I realized, like, oh man, I took a workshop, and they're like, you got fungus doesn't die. Okay, well then I need to treat fungus every month because otherwise it could potentially grow in between. So I'm building these programs that solve people's problems, okay? People need their grass aerated and overseeded. Well, I start a list. Anybody who wants it aerated and overseeded, the professor said do it every year. I'll make a list. I call you back every fall when it needs to be done, and we'll do it. Eventually, I got hundreds of clients on the list. Well, then you buy the aerators. You know what I mean? So it's like before you know it, you've got mowers, you've got spray rigs, you've got all this irrigation equipment, you've got aerators, and now you're a lawn care guy who does little landscape. And people want their bushes trimmed, they want their beds mulched, they want bushes replaced. In fact, they want to know what bushes you would put in their landscape. And so you kind of become a guy who starts giving advice on lawns and landscapes, right? And then from there, you see how your advice does, because people get mad at you or people give you compliments, and you learn and you grow, and you take the advice that you've given and you improve upon it. And before you know it, even though you say you don't do landscape design, you're designing people's landscapes. And so once you recognize that, like, okay, I guess I know enough to design a landscape, I got to do some drawings. So you kind of practice drawing stuff, and you suck at drawing, but then you learn how to draw over time and practice. And at first I wasn't even drawing stuff with straight lines. I was just scribbling something down as a map so that my guys could go out there and see what went where. It was literally just a basic communication tool. And then I realized that it actually was a way I could sell the customer. And so if I drew it with straight lines and I labeled all the plants really clearly, and I put north on there, and I put not to scale, and I wrote my company name with my phone number, I was literally making landscape designs for people. And then I realized that that's a paid service, and I was doing it for free, and I was damn good at it. So then I started charging for estimates. And all the meanwhile, every department's getting built, right? I was hiring guys from college for the longest time. They were some of the best workers I ever had. Once I got out of college, finding laborers became really freaking tough. That was probably the biggest hurdle I ran across. And when I started my business, my first flyers at the very bottom, one of the things I advertised was that we were employing U.S. citizens only. So I've made a 360 because today I'm a certified foreign labor employer. I bring in guys from Jamaica that work for me. And I couldn't do this without them. I couldn't have $1 million business without them. I cannot get American guys to show up for work. If they show up, I would say like I get 2 to 3 out of about 50 every year that I try to hire that actually show up and make it a year. Of those 3, one of them makes it 2 years. Of those of that one, that's it. That's the end of it. I've had 2 guys that have stuck with me for about 12 years now. I've actually fired them both and brought them both back. That's the labor market here. They're the best I got. And they're not bad. They're good. They've been doing it for 12 years. They're fucking good. They've been doing it with me for 12 years. So they're fucking good. But my point is that it's almost impossible to find the help. And so the way to get around that is with business systems. And that's something that I learned in my business school and business education. But at the end of the day, man, it's all these little things that I've done repeatedly, day after day after day. And the biggest thing is that every single day I show up and I work. And I show up and I work. And I'm dependable. You can count on me. And I'm smart, right? And like, you throw that stuff together, man, and you give it time, and that's the recipe for $1 million company. That's how you get there. It's not one thing you did. You can get lucky. I run off of marketing. I've got a really well-performing website. I learned a ton about SEO in my business education. So I basically owned the online real estate for every keyword in the industry around here, except for mowing. I never sought after mowing. Mowing was the only term that everybody else had already capitalized on, and it's the lowest margin of all the services we offer. So I'm not going to waste my money going after the low margin stuff. That's a bad business move. I spent my money on the highest margin stuff. So the irrigation, the applications, the landscaping, that's what I'm spending my money on advertising. I used to just hire hundreds of guys every year and turn and turn and turn. And when I had good guys, I put them in leadership positions. And if the guys weren't good, I generally just let them work till they quit. I didn't have to fire guys. Unemployment will kill you. And so you got to have good business practices. Like, you need to have employment policies and write-ups and, you know, different attendance policies. And how do you handle things? Like, it's got to be in writing. So, but it's every little thing. Like, if you go back and you look through all the videos on my TikTok channel, every little thing that I'm teaching you is one of the reasons why and how I got my business to where it's at. And the truth is you've got to do all of that stuff consistently and build it every day for years if you want to be where I'm at. And it's very much doable. 100% you can do it. But you got to grind and you got to show up. And you got to keep trying and you got to educate yourself. And you got to continually strive to get better. And biggest thing is, don't give up. Show up and don't quit. That's it, man. That's it.
Wow.